to titillate men, the same kind of lugs, now socially acceptable to gaze upon, which are revealed by young nuns as they walk about in their shortened habits. What a delightful step in the right or left direction. Is it possible? We will soon see topless nuns sensually throwing their bodies about to the miscellaneous rock. Satan smiles and says he would like that fine. Many nuns are very pretty girls with nice legs. Many churches with some of the largest congregations have the most hand-clapping, sensual music, also satanically inspired. After all, the devil has always had the best tunes. Church picnics, despite all of Aunt Martha's talk about the Lord's bountiful harvest, are nothing more than a good excuse for Sunday gluttony, and everyone knows that lots more than Bible reading goes on in the bushes. The fundraising adjunct to many church bazaars is commonly known as a carnival, which used to mean the celebration of the flesh. Now a carnival is okay because the money goes to the church so that it can preach against the temptations of the devil. It will be said that these things are only pagan devices and ceremonies, that the Christians borrowed them. True, but the pagans reveled in the delights of the flesh, and were condemned by the very same people who celebrate their rituals, but call them by different names. Priests and ministers are in the front lines of peace demonstrations, and lying on railroad tracks in front of trains carrying war materials, with as much dedication as their brothers of the cloth, from the same seminaries, who are blessing the bullets and bombs and fighting men as chaplains in the armed forces. Someone must be wrong someplace. Could it be that Satan is the one qualified to act as accuser? Certainly they named him that. When a puppy reaches maturity it becomes a dog. When I smell it is called water. When 12 months have been used up, we get a new calendar with the proper chronological name. When magic becomes scientific fact, we refer to it as medicine, astronomy, etc. When one name is no longer appropriate for a given thing, it is only logical to change it to a new one, which better fits the subject. Why, then, do we not follow suit in the area of religion? Why continue to call a religion the same name when the tenets of that religion no longer fit the original one? Or, if religion does preach the same things that it always has, but its followers practice nearly none of its teachings, why do they continue to call themselves by the name given to followers of that religion? If you do not believe in what your religion teaches, why continue to support a belief which is contradictory with your feelings? You would never vote for a person or issue you did not believe in, so why cast your ecclesiastical vote for a religion which is not consistent with your convictions? You have no right to complain about a political situation you have voted for or supported in any way, which includes sitting back and complacently agreeing with neighbors who approve the situation, just because you are too lazy or cowardly to speak your mind. So it is with religious balloting. Even if you cannot be aggressively honest about your opinions, because of unfavorable consequences from employers, community leaders, etc., you can, at least, be honest with yourself. In the privacy of your own home and with close friends, you must support religion which has your best interests at heart. Satanism is based on a very sound philosophy, say the emancipated. But why call it Satanism? Why not call it something like humanism, or a name that would have the connotation of a witchcraft group, something a little more esoteric, something less blatant. There is more than one reason for this. Humanism is not a religion, it is simply a way of life, with no ceremony or dogma. Satanism has both ceremony and dogma. Dogma, as will be explained, is necessary. Satanism differs greatly from all other so-called white light, white witchcraft or magical groups in the world today. These self-righteous and supercilious religions protest that their members use the powers of magic only for altruistic purposes. Satanists look with disdain upon white witchcraft groups because they feel that altruism is sinning on the laid away plan. It is unnatural not to have desire to gain things for yourself. Satanism represents a form of controlled selfishness. This does not mean that you never do anything for anyone else. If you do something to make someone for whom you care happy, his happiness will give you a sense of gratification. Satanism advocates practicing the modified form of the Golden Rule. Our interpretation of this rule is, do unto others as they do unto you, because if you do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and they, in turn, treat you badly, it goes against human nature to continue to treat them with consideration. You should do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but if your courtesy is not returned, they should be treated with the wrath they deserve. White witchcraft groups say that if you curse a person, it will return to you threefold, come home to roost, or in some way boomerang back to the sender. This is yet another indication of the guilt-ridden philosophy which is held by these neo-pagan, pseudo-Christian groups. White witches want to delve into witchcraft, but cannot divorce themselves from the stigma attached to it. Therefore, they call themselves white magicians, and base 75% of their philosophy on the trite and hackneyed tenets of Christianity. Anyone who pretends to be interested in magic or the occult for reasons other than gaining personal power is the worst kind of hypocrite. The Satanist respects Christianity for, at least, being consistent in its guilt-ridden philosophy, but can only feel contempt for the people who attempt to appear emancipated from guilt by joining the witchcraft group, and then practice the same basic philosophy as Christianity. White magic is supposedly utilized only for good or unselfish purposes, and black magic, we are told, is used only for selfish or evil reasons. Satanism draws no such dividing line. Magic is magic, be it used to help or hinder. The Satanist, being the magician, should have the ability to decide what is just, and then apply the powers of magic to attain his goals. During white magical ceremonies, the practitioners stand within a pentagram to protect themselves from the evil forces which they call upon for help. To the Satanist, it seems a bit two-faced to call on these forces for help, while at the same time protecting yourself from the very powers you have asked for assistance. The Satanist realizes that only by putting himself in league with these forces can he fully and unhypocritically utilize the powers of darkness to his best advantage. In a satanic magical ceremony, the participants do not join hands and dance ring around the rosy in a circle, burn candles of various colors for various wishes, call out the names of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost while supposedly practicing black arts, pick a saint for their personal guide in obtaining help for their problems, dunk themselves in smelly oils and hope the money comes in, meditate so they can arrive at a great spiritual awakening, recite long incantations with the name of Jesus thrown in for good measure between every few words, etc., etc., etc. Ad nauseam. Because this is not the way to practice satanic magic. If you cannot divorce yourself from hypocritical self-deceit, you will never be successful as a magician, much less a Satanist. The satanic religion has not merely lifted the coin, it has flipped it completely over. Therefore, why should it support the very principles to which it is completely opposed by calling itself anything other than a name which is totally in keeping with the reversed doctrines which make up the satanic philosophy? Satanism is not a white light religion, it is a religion of the flesh, the mundane, the carnal, all of which are ruled by Satan, the personification of the left-hand path. Inevitably, the next question asked is, granted, you can't call it humanism because humanism is not a religion, but why even have a religion in the first place if all you do is what comes naturally, anyway? Why not just do it? Modern man has come a long way. He has become disenchanted with the nonsensical dogmas of past religions. We are living in an enlightened age. Psychiatry has made great strides in enlightening man about his true personality. We are living in an era of intellectual awareness, unlike any the world has ever seen. This is all very well and good, but there is one flaw in this new state of awareness. It is one thing to accept something intellectually, but to accept the same thing emotionally is an entirely different matter. The one need that psychiatry cannot fill is man's inherent need for emotionalizing through dogma. Man needs ceremony and ritual, fantasy and enchantment. Psychiatry, despite all the good it has done, has robbed man of wonder and fantasy which religion, in the past, has provided. Satanism, realizing the current needs of man, fills the large gray void between religion and psychiatry. The satanic philosophy combines the fundamentals of psychology and good, honest emotionalizing, or dogma. It provides man with his much needed fantasy. There is nothing wrong with dogma, providing it is not based on ideas and actions which go completely against human nature. The quickest way of traveling between 2 points is in the straight line. If all the guilt that have been built up can be turned into advantages, it eliminates the need for intellectual purging of the psyche in an attempt to cleanse it from these repressions. Satanism is the only religion known to man that accepts man as he is, and promotes the rationale of turning a bad thing into a good thing rather than bending over backwards to eliminate the bad thing. Therefore, after intellectually evaluating your problems through common sense and drawing on what psychiatry has taught us, if you still cannot emotionally release yourself from unwarranted guilt and put your theories into action, then you should learn to make your guilt work for you. You should act upon your natural instincts, and then, if you cannot perform without feeling guilty, revel in your guilt. This may sound like a contradiction in terms, but if you will think about it, guilt can often add a fillip to the senses. Adults would do well to take the lesson from children. Children often take great delight in doing something they know they are not supposed to. Yes, times have changed, but man hasn't. The basics of Satanism have always existed. The only thing that is new is the formal organization of a religion based on the universal traits of man. For centuries, magnificent structures of stone, concrete, mortar, and steel have been devoted to man's abstinence. It is high time that human beings stop fighting themselves and devoted their time to building temples designed for man's indulgences. Even though times have changed, and always will, man remains basically the same. For 2,000 years man has done penance for something he never should have had to feel guilty about in the first place. We are tired of denying ourselves the pleasures of life which we deserve. Today, as always, man needs to enjoy himself here and now, instead of waiting for his rewards in heaven. So, why not have a religion based on indulgence? Certainly, it is consistent with the nature of the beast. We are no longer suffocating weaklings trembling before an unmerciful God who cares not whether we live or die. We are self-respecting, prideful people. We are Satanists. Help the devil. And how to sell your soul. Satan has certainly been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. The false doctrine of hell and the devil has allowed the Protestant and Catholic churches to flourish far too long, without a devil to point their fingers at. Religionists of the right-hand path would have nothing with which to threaten their followers. Satan leads you to temptation. Satan is the prince of evil. Satan is vicious, cruel, brutal. They warn, if you give in to the temptations of the devil, you will surely suffer eternal damnation and roast in hell. The semantic meaning of Satan is the adversary or opposition or the accuser. The very word devil comes from the Indian devi, which means God. Satan represents opposition to all religions which serve to frustrate and condemn man for his natural instincts. He has been given an evil role simply because he represents the carnal, earthly, and mundane aspects of life. Satan, the chief devil of the Western world, was originally an angel whose duty was to report human delinquencies to God. It was not until the 14th century that he began to be depicted as an evil deity who was part man and part animal, with goat-like horns and claws. Before Christianity gave him the names of Satan, Lucifer, etc., the carnal side of man's nature was governed by the god which was then called Dionysus, or Pan, depicted as a satyr or faun by the Greeks. Pan was originally the good guy and symbolized fertility and fecundity. Whenever the nation comes under a new form of government, the heroes of the past become villains of the present. So it is with religion. The earliest Christians believed that the pagan deities were devils, and to employ them was to use black magic. Miraculous heavenly events they termed white magic. This was the sole distinction between the two. The old gods did not die. They fell into hell and became devils. The bogie, goblin, or bugaboo used to frighten children is derived from the Slavonic bog, which means god, as Dashbaga in Hindu. Many pleasures revered before the advent of Christianity were condemned by the new religion. It required little changeover to transform the horns and cloven hooves of Pan into a most convincing devil. Pan's attributes could be neatly changed into charged with punishment. And so the metamorphosis was complete. The association of the goat with the devil is found in the Christian Bible, where the holiest day of the year, the Day of Atonement, was celebrated by casting lots for two goats without blemish, one to be offered to the Lord, and one to Azazel. The goat carrying the sins of the people was driven into the desert and became a scapegoat. This is the origin of the goat, which is still used in wash ceremonies today, as it was also used in Egypt, where once a year it was sacrificed to a god. The devils of mankind are many, and their origins diversified. The performance of satanic ritual does not embrace the calling forth of demons. This practice is followed only by those who are in fear of the very forces they conjure. Supposedly, demons are malevolent spirits with attributes conducive to the deterioration of the people or events that they touch upon. The Greek word demon meant a guardian spirit or source of inspiration, and to be sure, later theologians invented legion upon legion of these harbingers of inspiration, all wicked. An indication of the cowardice of magicians in the right-hand path is the practice of calling upon a particular demon who would supposedly be a minion of the devil to do his bidding. The assumption is that the demon, being only a flunky of the devil, is easier to control. Lore states that only the most formidably protected or insanely foolhardy sorcerer would try to call forth the devil himself. The Satanist does not furtively call upon these lesser devils, but brazenly invokes those who people that infernal army of long-standing outrage, the devils themselves. Theologians have catalogued some of the names of devils in their lists of demons, as might be expected, but the roster which follows contains the names and origins of the gods and goddesses called upon, which make up a large part of the occupancy of the royal palace of hell. The four crown princes of hell: Satan, Hebrew adversary, opposite, accuser, lord of fire; the inferno, the south; Lucifer, Roman bringer of light, enlightenment; the air, the morning star; the east, Belial, Hebrew without a master, baseness of the earth, independence; the north, Leviathan, Hebrew the serpent out of the deeps, the sea; the west. The infernal names: Abaddon, Hebrew the destroyer; Adramilage, Sumerian devil; Ahpach, Mayan devil; Bahriman, Masdian devil; Amun, Egyptian ram-headed god of life and reproduction; Apollyon, Greek synonym for Satan, the archfiend; Asmodeus, Hebrew devil of sensuality and luxury, originally creature of judgment; Astarte, Phoenician goddess of lasciviousness, equivalent of Babylonian Ishtar; Azazel, Hebrew taught man to make weapons of war, introduced cosmetics; Baal-Berith, Canaanite lord of the covenant, who was later made the devil; Balaam, Hebrew devil of avarice and greed; Baphomet, worshipped by the Templars as symbolic of Satan; Bast, Egyptian goddess of pleasure represented by the cat; Beelzebub, Hebrew lord of the flies, taken from symbolism of the scarab; Behemoth, Hebrew personification of Satan in the form of an elephant; Beherit, Syriac name for Satan; Baal, Celtic god of hell; Chemosh, national god of Moabites, later a devil; Siamurgir, rides a black horse and rules Africa; Coyote, American Indian devil; Dagon, Philistine avenging devil of the sea. Dambala, Dedu serpent god. Demogorgon, Greek name of the devil, it is said should not be known to mortals. Diabolus, Greek flowing downwards. Dracula, Romanian name for devil. Mo, Japanese ruler of hell. Uranus, Greek prince of death. Phenares, son of Loki, depicted as a wolf. Gorgo, dim. Of Demogorgon, Greek name of the devil. Taborium, Hebrew synonym for Satan. Hecate, Greek goddess of the underworld and witchcraft. Ishtar, Babylonian goddess of fertility. Kali, Hindu daughter of Shiva, high priestess of the Thuggees. Lilith, Hebrew female devil, Adam's first wife who taught him the ropes. Loki, Teutonic devil. Mammon, Aramaic god of wealth and profit. Mania, Etruscan goddess of help. Mantus, Etruscan god of help. Marduk, god of the city of Babylon. Mastema, Hebrew synonym for Satan. Melektos, Yezidai devil. Mephistopheles, Greek he who shuns the light, QV foul. Metzli, Aztec goddess of the night. Mictian, Aztec god of death. Midgard, son of Loki, depicted as a serpent. Milcom, Ammonite devil. Moloch, Phoenician and Canaanite devil. Mormon, Greek king of the ghouls, consort of Hecate. Nama, Hebrew female devil of seduction. Nergal, Babylonian god of Hades. Nihazar, American Indian devil. Mija, Polish god of the underworld. Ohuma, Japanese name for Satan. Pan, Greek god of lust, later relegated to devildom. Pluto, Greek god of the underworld. Proserpine, Greek queen of the underworld. Heathcote, Welsh name for Satan. Rimmon, Syrian devil worship at Damascus. Sabazios, Phrygian origin, identified with Dionysus. Snake worship. Satan, Enochian equivalent of Satan. Samuel, Hebrew venom of God. Samnud, Central Asian devil. Sidik, American Indian devil. Sekhmet, Egyptian goddess of vengeance. Seth, Egyptian devil. Shaitan, Arabic name for Satan. Shiva, Hindu the destroyer. Supi, think god of the underworld. Tanengo, Chinese counterpart to the devil. Covetousness, desire. Kurt, Russian name for Satan, black god. Tezcatlipoca, Aztec god of help. Timor, Sumerian god who later was relegated to devildom. The Egyptian god of magic. Sunrida, Skandinavian female devil. Typhon, Greek personification of Satan. Yasin, Aztec god of help. Yan Lo Wang, Chinese ruler of hell. The devils of past religions have always, at least in part, had animal characteristics, evidence of man's constant need to deny that he too is an animal, for to do so would serve a mighty blow to his impoverished ego. The pig was despised by the Jews and the Egyptians. It symbolized the gods Phrase, Osiris, Adonis, Persephone, Attis, and Demeter, and was sacrificed to Osiris and the moon. But, in time, it became degraded into a devil. The Phoenicians worried to fly god, Baal, from which comes the devil, Beelzebub. Both Baal and Beelzebub are identical to the dung beetle or Scarabaeus of the Egyptians, which appeared to resurrect itself. Much as the mythical bird, the phoenix, rose from its own ashes. The ancient Jews believed, through their contact with the Persians, that the two great forces in the world were Mazda, the god of fire, light, life, and goodness, and Ahriman, the serpent, the god of darkness, destruction, death, and evil. These, and countless other examples, not only depict man's devils as animals, but also show his need to sacrifice the original animal gods and demote them to his devils. At the time of the Reformation, in the 16th century, the alchemist, Dr. Johann Faustus, discovered a method of summoning the demon, Mephistopheles, from hell and making a pact with him. He signed a contract in blood to turn his soul over to Mephistopheles in return for the feeling of youth, and at once became young. When the time came for Faustus to die, he retired to his room and was blown to bits as though his laboratory had exploded. This story is the protest of the times, the 16th century, against science, chemistry, and magic. To the Satanist, it is unnecessary to sell your soul to the devil or make a pact with Satan. This threat was devised by Christianity to terrorize people so they would not stray from the fold. With scolding fingers and trembling voices, they taught their followers that if they gave in to the temptations of Satan, and lived their lives according to their natural predilections, they would have to pay for their sinful pleasures by giving their souls to Satan and suffering in hell for all eternity. People were led to believe that a pure soul was a passport to everlasting life. Pious prophets have taught man to fear Satan. But what of terms like God-fearing? If God is so merciful, why do people have to fear him? Are we to believe there is nowhere we can turn to escape fear? If you have to fear God, why not be Satan-fearing and at least have the fun? That being God-fearing denies you. Without such a wholesale fear, religionists would have had nothing with which to wield power over their followers. The Teutonic goddess of the dead and daughter of Loki was named Hel, the pagan god of torture and punishment. Another L was added when the books of the Old Testament were formulated. The prophets who wrote the Bible did not know the word hell. They used the Hebrew Sheol and the Greek Hades, which meant the grave, also the Greek Tartaros, which was the abode of fallen angels, the underworld inside the earth, and Gehenna, which was a valley near Jerusalem where Moloch reigned and garbage was dumped and burned. It is from this that the Christian Church has evolved the idea of fire and brimstone in hell. The Protestant hell and the Catholic hell are places of eternal punishment. However, the Catholics also believe there is a purgatory where all souls go for a time, and a limbo where unbaptized souls go. The Buddhist hell is divided into 8 sections, the first 7 of which can be expiated. The ecclesiastical description of hell is that of a horrible place of fire and torment. In Dante's Inferno, and in northern climes, it was thought to be an icy cold region, a giant refrigerator. Even with all their threats of eternal damnation and soul roasting, Christian missionaries have run across some who were not so quick to swallow their drivel. Pleasure and pain, like beauty, are in the eye of the beholder. So, when missionaries ventured into Alaska and warned the Eskimos of the horrors of hell and the blazing lake of fire awaiting transgressors, they eagerly asked, how do we get there? Most Satanists do not accept Satan as an anthropomorphic being with cloven hooves, a barbed tail, and horns. He merely represents a force in nature, the powers of darkness, which have been named just that because no religion has taken these forces out of the darkness. Nor has science been able to apply technical terminology to this force. It is an untapped reservoir that few can make use of because they lack the ability to use the tool without having to first break down and label all the parts which make it run. It is this incessant need to analyze which prohibits most people from taking advantage of this many-faceted key to the unknown, which the Satanist chooses to call Satan. Satan, as a god, demigod, personal savior, or whatever you wish to call him, was invented by the formulators of every religion on the face of the earth for only one purpose, to preside over man's so-called wicked activities and situations here on earth. Consequently, anything resulting in physical or mental gratification was defined as evil, thus assuring a lifetime of unwarranted guilt for everyone. So, if evil they have named us, evil we are, and so what? The Satanic age is upon us. Why not take advantage of it and live? Love and hate. Satanism represents kindness to those who deserve it instead of love wasted on ingrates. You cannot love everyone. It is ridiculous to think you can. If you love everyone and everything, you lose your natural powers of selection and wind up being a pretty poor judge of character and quality. If anything is used too freely, it loses its true meaning. Therefore, the Satanist believes you should love strongly and completely those who deserve your love, but never turn the other cheek to your enemy. Love is one of the most intense emotions felt by man. Another is hate. Forcing yourself to feel indiscriminate love is very unnatural. If you try to love everyone, you only lessen your feelings for those who deserve your love. Repressed hatred can lead to many physical and emotional ailments. By learning to release your hatred towards those who deserve it, you cleanse yourself of these malignant emotions and need not take your pen of hatred out on your loved ones. There has never been a great love movement in the history of the world that hasn't wounded up killing countless numbers of people, we must assume, to prove how much they love them. Every hypocrite who ever walked the earth has had pockets bulging with love. Every pharisaical religionist claims to love his enemies, even though when wrong he consoles himself by thinking God will punish them. Instead of admitting to themselves that they are capable of hating their foes and treating them in the manner they deserve, they say, "There, but for the grace of God, go I and pray for them." Why should we humiliate and lower ourselves by drawing such inaccurate comparisons? Satanism has been thought of as being synonymous with cruelty and brutality. This is so only because people are afraid to face the truth, and the truth is that human beings are not all benign or all loving. Just because the Satanist admits he is capable of both love and hate, he is considered hateful. On the contrary, because he is able to give vent to his hatred through ritualized expression, he is far more capable of love, the deepest kind of love. By honestly recognizing and admitting to both the hate and the love he feels, there is no confusing one emotion with the other. Without being able to experience one of these emotions, you cannot fully experience the other. Satanic sex. To titillate men.